Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Grace Torie, and I'm back with a whole new podcast episode. I did not mention it to you guys, but I actually started a new job this week, and your girl is so tired. So that is why I am just like chilling in a frat t-shirt, like just got out of the shower, having a little self-care night. So if you're watching this instead of just listening, girl, let's get cozy and have ourselves a good time. I'm gonna put my glasses on because I have a bunch of notes for this episode. I have a feeling it's gonna require a lot of editing, and I did quite a bit of research in addition to my own opinion on some things. So if you don't agree with something, it's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. That's kind of what I love about astrology so much, for the most part. Some of it is very gray rather than black and white, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I'm just like super tired. I literally left my tripod in my office and I'm in my room right now, and I was too lazy to go get it. So my camera is literally, I need to stop saying that, literally. Like, I need to just cut that on my vocabulary. But it's just sitting at a weird angle, so that's just me trying not to have a 13th reason today. You know, I've already used 12, so we're just gonna save that 13th one, you know? We are at threat level midnight, so we're working, we're going along. But I'm so excited for this episode because you guys know, if you follow me on my personal account or you've been around for a while, that horoscopes are something that I personally love, I enjoy. I don't want to say that they're like the be-all end-all for a lot of my decisions, but I feel like they're definitely useful when you're trying to crack the code on somebody. And for me, I see it as a little bit more scientific. I'm talking too fast again, because it's based on like the energy of the planets when you were born. So I personally see it as quite scientific rather than just like a kind of spiritual thing. I'm more on the science side of it that I find so interesting. So that's where I'm at with it. If you don't personally believe in horoscopes and you just want to skip this episode, you do you, girly, but it is something that I really love. Before we get started, if you want to share this episode with your friends, post it on your Instagram stories, I would love that. It would help me out so much. I want our community of girlies to grow so that we can be a big old family and we all can navigate this crazy thing called life together. I think that's everything I want to say, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the video. So a little bit about horoscopes. What they are is basically where the planets were at when you were born, as where they are at now affects you. So one way that I think has really helped me understand this is that the moon affects the tide, right? So at different times of the month, the tide is at different levels, low tide, high tide. So if you look at hospital intakes on full moons, and I worked in preschool for a while, and there's a saying that like, oh, it's a full moon. It's because people are crazier on the full moon. I don't know why, but that's what it is. That's neither here nor there. But I did want to go ahead and jump into all of the signs and kind of the stereotypes that go with them, and then we'll jump into all of the planets and what each one stands for, and then we will talk about examples. So there's a lot going on. I do want to pull up a list real quick to make sure I don't miss any signs. So I will, let me see. I will do that right now. I'm trying to get it to pull all them up right quick, but this is like the one thing I didn't prepare, but it's fine. Everything's fine. So the first sign in the horoscope calendar is Aries, and that's from March 21st to April 19th. Aries are typically very competitive. They are very driven, ambitious. I don't know if ambitious is the word. They're like aggressive. They're a fire sign. So there's 4 different elements that they fall under. Aries is fire. There's also water, earth, and air. So Aries falls under that fire. They're very passionate, competitive. They take action. They don't they can be a bit impulsive. My best friend is an Aries. I am on the cusp of being an Aries, and I love Aries. They're so much fun. They're typically the people who are very outgoing and just say whatever is on their mind. So that's Aries. So next is what I am. It is the Taurus. So the Taurus's animal is the bull. They are an earth sign. So earth signs are very grounded. They're very calm, typically very chill. So I feel like it makes me come off as like, I don't care, I'm being pessimistic sometimes, but I'm just genuinely like a very chill person. Like I just sit back and, you know, Tauruses specifically, our stereotype is that we love to eat and sleep. We like to stay in more than go out. We're just very calm people. We're also associated with weed, so 420. And yeah, just very go with the flow, very grounded, calm people. They're very stubborn. I forgot to mention that. That is one thing about us. You cannot control a Taurus. Very stubborn. We do what we want and you cannot convince us otherwise. Very chill other than that. Next is the Gemini. Gemini is an interesting sign. So they are air. They are very, very outgoing. These are typically the popular girls in high school. They're just very good at communicating. They float around a lot and don't really stay in one place for too long. Gemini is also known to kind of have two sides to everything because their sign is twins. So they have two sides to them. I'm not necessarily saying that there's two-faced, but I am saying like there's a deeper level to them rather than what they show. Like I mentioned, very good at communication. All air signs are very hard to pin down, so they are very jumping from one place to the other, easily bored. And that's definitely a Gemini. They are the most outgoing, I would say, out of the air signs. Also, if you hear anything, my dog is with me. Next is Cancer, one of my favorite signs. They are a water sign. So water signs are very deep, emotional, kind of dreamy. So Cancers are known for being very emotional. They are the songwriters, the poets. They are typically wear their heart on their sleeve is a good way to describe it. They come off as very like young and innocent. So if you have a Cancer rising, you typically fall into that very like doe-like eyes, blue. They are a water sign. Sorry if I'm like not making any sense. I'm just so tired and this is everywhere and I'm getting real excited because I love talking about it. But yeah, they're just very heart on your sleeve, come off as very pure and naive. But people can say that they come off as manipulative. I have heard that about Cancers. I personally have not been like super close friends with one. But there is a dark side to all signs, and I've heard that about Cancers, that they can get away with a lot because they come off that way. So next is a Leo. I haven't been saying the dates, my bad, but a Leo is July 22nd through August 22nd. Leos are interesting. They are a fire sign, just like an Aries, and they love being the center of attention. A lot of Leos end up being famous, just like Geminis. They are the center of attention the second they walk into the room. All eyes go to them, and they like it that way. They're just very about themselves, not in a bad way, but they know their worth and they will not settle for less. They are bougie, they are very outgoing, like that fire comes out, and they're interesting. In my experience, stay away from Leo boys. They're a little bit more of the F-boys in my personal experience. So if you're dating a Leo, good on you. You wrangled them in. But personally, that I've been around quite a few Leos, and that's my only experiences with the boys. Moving on though, Virgo is August 23rd through September 22nd. These are also earth signs. They are known as the very organized, almost OCD. They have a schedule, everything's planned ahead of time. They get very upset if things are not planned ahead of time. They are like the friend who's type A. Again, very grounded. They're very, they understand what their goal is and how they're gonna get there. So very chill, but a little bit more uptight in terms of scheduling and things like that, whereas a Taurus is just very go with the flow, whatever happens happens, but still very grounded. Next is Libra, September 23rd through October 22nd. So Libras are known to restore balance. Their animal is actually a balance. It's not an animal. So it's those two, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like, I think it's called a balance. It's those two sides. They have one in Aladdin, and I always think about it. And like if you put like gold on one side, it makes the other side tip. So they're always trying to restore balance. They are an air sign, so they are very outgoing as well. They are, I don't know how to describe them. They're outgoing. They like, I don't know, like I feel like people always associate Libras with being airheads, but they're definitely not. They're just like the friend that likes to crack jokes. They can be the center of attention, but they don't necessarily have to be, and they're just there for a good time. But like I mentioned, when it comes down to it, there's that balance. They're very indecisive. That's just something about Libras. They're super indecisive, and they can never decide on anything, and it's part of that balance, having an issue, because they weigh all of the options, but overall they're just very outgoing people. Next is Scorpio. Scorpio is October 23rd through November 21st. So I personally love Scorpios. I'm Scorpio dominant. My mom, my sister, her husband, and their baby are all Scorpios. A lot of Scorpios in my family. Scorpio is a water sign, so they are very deep. However, they come off as very stern and hard, and you have to dig deep to get them to talk about it. They are actually the sign of sex, and they are very passionate when it comes to things like that. But like I said, they have a really hard exterior that you have to crack through. They have that very emotional side because they are a water sign, but you got to get through them. They're a little bit darker. People usually associate Scorpios with like wearing black and being very emo almost, but they're not all like that. Like I don't know. I've met a lot of Scorpios that typically do fall into that category, but they also could not. That's just like a stereotype. Next is Sagittarius, which is November 22nd through December 20th. And like the other fire signs, they are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Sagittariuses are like the partiers of the horoscope. They are crazy, outgoing. They are very, very hard to tie down. They get bored so quickly, very, very impulsive. Whereas Aries are a little bit more understanding of their direction, and they do things that are better for them. Sagittariuses just do things. Like, they just make decisions without typically thinking about it, whereas Aries, it's very calculated and more strategic. Overall, like, they're the crazy ones. Sagittariuses get very easily bored. They're very hard to keep around, and they just typically bounce around and do their thing. Next is the Capricorns. So Capricorns are December 22nd through January 19th. Capricorns are earth signs. So this is the third sign in the earth element. There are 3 signs in every element, if you haven't noticed. Capricorns are very business-minded, very ambitious. They are very entrepreneurial. They are very forward-thinking in terms of their goals and how to get there. So they're typically associated with businesswomen, businessmen, and just finding that stability so that they can make a name for themselves. And there's not much about Capricorns outside of that. They're kind of known for being kind of boring. Like, they don't really do anything too crazy. They like neutral colors, and they're just very focused on their future. Next is Aquarius, which is January 20th through February 18th, and whew, Aquariuses are something else. They are the quirky friend. Your friend that's quirky and just is in their own little world. That's typically an Aquarius. They are just very floaty. They can be very outgoing. They're the friend who has to be different than everybody else. They cannot follow trends. They will do the opposite. They just want to do their own thing. They're typically very neurodivergent in their thinking. Like, they just do not want to be a sheeple. They want to be the trendsetter, do their own thing. They're typically, they say like things that other people find weird or odd, but it makes perfect sense to them. They're off in their own little world. I personally love Aquariuses. A good example is Harry Styles is an Aquarius. They're really fun once you crack that hard exterior, but they typically are just off to themselves doing their own thing, which good for them. Like, they're very independent in that respect. the last horoscope sign that we are going to discuss is the final water sign. So Pisces are very dreamy. They also come off as having like doe eyes. They are a water sign. They're very similar to Aquarius in that they're often off in their own little world. I'd say they're probably a good mixture of Aquarius and Cancer, where they're very deep, very emotional, but they're also very dreamy. They are typically daydreaming in another world 24/7. Like Pisces just live in their own little reality, where Aquarius is off doing their own thing and they have very innovative ideas and they're just not following the crowd. Pisces is just off in their own little world completely. These are typically the poets. Cancers are great when it comes to tapping into your emotions and writing songs and things like that. Pisces are great at creating their own reality completely. So great novelists, poets, like I mentioned. They are very, very creative, possibly one of the most creative signs. And they also come off as very innocent and beautiful and naive, almost childlike. I don't want to say childlike because like that's not youthful. Is that a good word? I hope that's a better term. But that is the explanation of all of these signs. Now we are going to get into all of the planets. So in order to know what planets you have all of your signs in, there's two ways to do this. The first is to go on astro-charts.com and you can type in your name, your date of birth, where you were born, and the time you were born, and that gives you everything. Time you were born is really important because some things are a couple minutes off. And next, the other way is to download Cosine. So Cosine actually goes into detail and explains what every single planet means and what it means to have your horoscope in that planet. So I'll break it down a little bit, but for beginners, I would recommend Cosine. It also talks about your houses. I'm not going to talk about houses on this episode, but if you want me to talk about houses, girl, we can totally talk about it. Just go ahead and comment on my Instagram what you want to hear, if you want to hear a breakdown of houses or anything like that. This is just a really basic understanding, and like I mentioned, I'm still learning, and if you don't agree with something, I would love to talk about it, but you don't have to reach out. You know, you just take it with a grain of salt, I guess is what I'm saying. But we are going to jump into the planets. So your sun is typically what you tell people. So your sun is what I just mentioned, the dates I mentioned, that all correlates to your sun. So your sun sign is your identity. That is what you are at your most inner core. That's how you identify. And that is just, yeah, your identity as a whole. So your sun, my sun is in Taurus. So at my core, I'm very chill. I'm very calm. I love nature because I'm an earth sign. I would go just sit out in nature for hours. I feel a connection to the earth. So that is what your sun sign is. It's just at your core who you are. But while your self-identity is your sun, there are a lot of other factors that affect your personality and who you are, and that's all of the planets. So the next planet is your moon sign, and that is your emotions. That's how you think, that's your feelings. Mine is in Cancer, so I am very emotional. I cry at the drop of a hat. It's a blessing and a curse. I can also, you know, it makes me really deep. I can write some good song lyrics. But yeah, it's your emotions, your intuition. So I have really good intuition because of my Cancer moon. So yeah, it's anything you would picture associating with the moon, I guess, like your introspection, things like that. That's all your moon sign. Next is Mercury. So Mercury is how you communicate. My Mercury is in Aries, so I am very straightforward. I like action. I am just gonna jump right into it. But that's basically just how you communicate. Venus is love, so how you are in relationships. Girlies, if you want to know some tea, my Venus is in Gemini, so I get bored very easily. Yikes. Yeah, no. But Josh's Venus is in Taurus, so he's very stable, and I love that. Also, Venus is also your outward appearance, so it makes sense that I'm a Gemini because I get bored super easily with how I look. I'm constantly dyeing my hair, getting new tattoos, getting a new piercing, and it just makes sense, you know? Next is your Mars. Your Mars is aggression and how you handle anger. I am a Scorpio Mars, which means that I am very passionate. I can get really aggressive when it comes to being angry. I have found that Scorpio Mars, I know a lot of Scorpio Mars, we go for the throat. Like, we're good for a long time. We have a very long, patient time, but once you like hit that switch, it's like you will go for the freaking we'll go for the jugular. Like, there are no limits, and I hate that about myself. I'm very calm about this, but my sister's also a Scorpio Mars in addition to being a Scorpio, so like I've been on the receiving end of it and I've dished it out, and it's scary. But yeah, that's just an example of how you handle conflict. Next is Jupiter. So I believe Jupiter is, yeah, so it's your growth, your self-growth, your abundance, things like that. So mine is in Aries, so I have a hard time sitting back and letting things happen. I have to be actively working towards my goals, which is something I'm working on as well, because I think that that's a combination of anxiety and having to have an active part instead of just letting things flow. But Jupiter is growth and things like that. Next is Saturn. Saturn is your self-control, your limitations. Let me pull this up and make sure it's not generational. Yeah, it's not, but it rolls responsibility, restrictions, limits, boundaries, fears, and self-discipline. So mine's in Taurus, which means that I settle a little too easily. I'm too relaxed on my self-control, which is definitely true. I need a little bit more self-discipline. I also have an issue with imagination at times because I'm just so grounded. I have a hard time like getting out of that and getting into a more creative place. And I also get distracted by material items because Tauruses tend to love the finer things. We do. We have a love for material things. So having a Sun in Taurus and a Saturn in Taurus leads to a very distracted Grace. But next is our Uranus. So Uranus is a generational sign, which means, or generational planet, which means your entire generation is in this sign. So our generation is in Aquarius. Uranus, I think this is super interesting because it rolls your innovation, the progress, and the rebellion. And Aquarius is a generally very rebellious sign. It's very innovative. It does the opposite of what all other people signs do. So the fact that our generation is in Aquarius says a lot, because a lot of us have gone the non-conventional route. Is it route or route? I don't know, I'm getting sidetracked. But I don't know, I just find it super interesting that we are so innovative. And you know, podcasting is not a thing that like a generation before us would do. They would go to work, do their 9 to 5, but we are just not settling for that. And I find it so interesting. Next is your Neptune. So your Neptune is another generational one. It stays around for 14 years and it rolls your dreams, your imagination, and the unconscious. So ours is also in Aquarius. So similar to the previous one that talks about progress and innovation, we also have goals that are not typical. So whereas the generation before us, their goals may have been to have a nice wage, have a family, ours is to travel the world and do things that just were not very conventional to those before us. So it's very interesting. And the last planet we are going to talk about, and then we'll move on to your rising, is Pluto. So Pluto is another generational one. It rolls power, intensity, obsession, and control. So for my generation, I'm just going to read this because I'm not as familiar with Pluto. We are Sagittarius, and it stays in the sign for up to 30 years, so it's been here for a while. There's a lot of people in the Sagittarius. It means that our generation's psyche is comparatively positive, free-spirited, curious, optimistic, forward-looking, independent, and confident. Which, that makes me happy. I love that. And then the last planet, it's not really a planet, that we're going to talk about is your Ascendant, also known as your rising. so your ascendant slash rising is how people perceive you. It's how you look outwardly. So this is like your first impression when you walk into a room. So mine is Sagittarius, which I think is super interesting because when you get to know me, I'm super chill and calm, but I tend to like kind of take over the room when I walk in, and people see me as very loud, independent, you know, outgoing, and can see me as a little bit crazy, but then when they get to know me, they're like, oh my gosh, she's super chill. So it definitely is in line with my rising and my ascendant. So definitely interesting, but I want all of you to look up all of your charts. You can do it on the website or you can do it on the app. I will put the link to both in the descriptions, and please screenshot them and send them to me because I would love to read them, talk to you about them. I love reading people's charts. You don't understand, like, it's so exciting to me. So I definitely want to hear all about it. This was just like a quick little, well, it wasn't quick, but it was an explanation for people who don't know anything about horoscope signs. So if you want me to dive in deeper, please let me know. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know what aspects of horoscopes you want to talk about. Manifestation, what does Mercury retrograde mean? What does it mean when a planet goes into retrograde? I can talk about this all day long. I think it's so interesting, like I mentioned. But I think that is it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and like I mentioned, if you could share or if you want to send me your chart, I would really appreciate it. I love you guys so much. I love this community already. I think podcasting is so much fun. I'm so glad that you guys enjoy my episodes and want to support me. It makes me so happy. But I will let you guys get back to the rest of your Wednesday or whenever you are listening to this. I hope you have a great day. I love you so much, and I will see you guys in my next episode. Bye.